At long last, Clayton Moore has broken his silence regarding J. Silverheels. The 14th of September, 1914 found Jack Carlton Moore being born in Chicago, Illinois. Clayton Moore was born on that day. Moore's early years were marked by outstanding athleticism and flair on his part. When he was a young man, he participated in the Flying Bears trapeze act as an acrobat. Through this experience, he gained the agility and discipline that would later provide him with the opportunity to play physical parts in films and television shows. Moore began his career in Hollywood in the 1930s as a stuntman and actor in low-budget westerns and cals. His excellent looks and athletic frame opened doors for him in Hollywood, and he has been working in these roles ever since. As time went on, he built up a consistent career in the film industry, frequently acting in supporting roles in films that were classified as B-westerns and adventure pictures. Moore was establishing a reputation as a dependable performer in roles that required a lot of physical exertion, despite the fact that he was not yet a household name. When Moore was cast in the starring role of the Lone Ranger in 1949, the television adaptation of the immensely famous radio show Everything Changed for Him. The Lone Ranger was a television adaptation of. Moore brought the masked Texas Ranger to life in a way that immediately won the hearts of millions of people. He did this by using his deep commanding voice, remarkable appearance, and compelling screen presence. While Silver was riding the White Stallion, he was accompanied by his devoted Native American buddy, Tanto, who was portrayed by Jonathan. For many years, Moore's portrayal of the Lone Ranger, known as Silverheels, was the defining characteristic of the character. The catchphrases that became famous with the show, such as "Hi, yo, Silver away," and "Who was that masked man?" made their way into American popular culture, and Moore himself became connected with the concepts of justice, integrity, and frontier valor. Moore played the role of the Lone Ranger from 1949 until 1951, and then again from 1954 until 1957, following a brief contract dispute that resulted in him being temporarily replaced. His return was met with widespread acclaim, and his performances during the later seasons helped to cement the show's legendary status. Moore never truly stopped being the Lone Ranger, even after the series came to an end. Uniquely, he chose to continue wearing the iconic black mask and Western attire in public appearances, charity work, and promotional events, steadfastly upholding the ideals the character represented. For Moore, the Lone Ranger was not just a role. It was a moral compass, a personal creed, and a public mission. During the height of his iconic run as the Lone Ranger, Clayton Moore didn't limit himself solely to his legendary masked role. The Adventures of Kit Carson was a popular syndicated Western series that was led by actor Bill Williams. The show was known for dramatizing frontier adventures of the legendary scout Kit Carson, and Moore's involvement helped reinforce his standing as a dependable and rugged figure in the Western genre. Moore made appearances in other television series that showcased the versatility of his acting talents. In 1952, Moore appeared as a guest star in an episode of The Adventures of Kit Carson. His role in this series, though brief, demonstrated that Moore could successfully integrate himself into other storylines while still maintaining the heroic demeanor that endeared him to audiences. In addition to that appearance, Moore also took on roles in The Range Rider, a Western television series starring Jock Mahoney, another prominent action actor of the time. Moore guest starred in 2 episodes of The Range Rider, one in 1952 and another in 1953. These episodes allowed Moore to engage with different narratives and characters in the Western television world, providing fans with a glimpse of him outside of the Lone Ranger persona. It's worth noting that even when Moore wasn't donning the famous mask and white hat, his natural charisma, upright posture, and commanding voice often made it hard for audiences not to associate him with his most famous role. Moore's partnership with J. Silverheels, who played Tanto, extended beyond the realm of television series and into the realm of feature films. Together, they starred in 2 full-length Lone Ranger motion pictures, The Lone Ranger, which was released in 1956, and The Lone Ranger and the Lost City of Gold, which was released in 1958. These films brought the well-known characters to the big screen and expanded the mythos of the Lone Ranger universe. In Lost City of Gold, the duo tackled themes of justice and prejudice, helping elevate the stories beyond standard Western shootouts and into narratives with moral and social depth. Moore's performance in the films remained faithful to the noble, honorable figure he had created on television, while Silvers continued to lend Tanto a dignity and quiet strength that was uncommon for Native American roles in that era. After the completion of the second feature film in 1958, Moore transitioned into a remarkable new chapter of his life and career, one focused almost entirely on preserving and embodying the legacy of the Lone Ranger. For the next 40 years, Moore dedicated himself to making personal appearances across the country. These appearances spanned a wide range of venues from rodeos and parades to schools, children's hospitals, and even commercial events. His involvement in the promotion of a short-lived chain of Lone Ranger restaurants in Southern California was one of the more unique ventures that he engaged in during this time period. Although the restaurants did not last for very long, they reflected the cultural impact of Moore's persona and the strength of the Lone Ranger brand during that era. He became a symbol of virtue and justice, not only on screen, but also in real life. Moore continued to make television guest appearances and appeared in ads where he repeated his role, much to the joy of generations of fans who had grown up watching him. Even after the original show had finished, Moore's loyalty to his masked alter ego was steadfast. He continued to appear in advertising. His appearances weren't just nostalgic throwbacks. They were a continuation of his personal mission to uphold the ideals the Lone Ranger stood for: truth, justice, and loyalty. Jay Silverheels occasionally joined Moore for special appearances and public reunions during the early 1960s. These events offered fans a rare opportunity to see the beloved duo together again, and they served as a poignant reminder of the enduring friendship between the actors who brought the Lone Ranger and Tanto to life. Moore frequently spoke with a great deal of admiration for Silverheels, describing him not only as a talented performer, but also as a man of profound integrity and quiet strength. Moore expressed profound respect and affection for his co-star throughout his entire life, acknowledging the significant and ground-breaking role that Silverheels played as one of the few indigenous actors to achieve mainstream success in Hollywood during the middle of the 20th century. One of the most memorable and widely shared anecdotes about Moore's life after the television series involves a story told by actor and comedian Jay Thomas, who became known for recounting it annually on The Late Show with David Letterman. Beginning in 2000 and continuing nearly every Christmas season until Letterman's retirement in 2015, Thomas retold a humorous and almost unbelievable tale that highlighted both Moore's heroism and sense of humor. The story dated back to the 1970s, when Thomas was working as a radio DJ in North Carolina. He was assigned to do a remote broadcast from a local car dealership where none other than Clayton Moore, appearing in full Lone Ranger costume, was making a special appearance. At the end of the event, Moore found himself without a ride, and Thomas, eager to help, offered to drive him back to his hotel. As fate would have it, their drive took a wild turn. While on the road, a reckless driver hit Thomas's car hard enough to damage a headlight and then attempted to flee the scene. Outraged, Thomas gave chase, determined to confront the offender. He eventually caught up to the other driver in a parking lot where the man arrogantly insisted that no one would believe Thomas's story of the accident and pursuit. At that moment, Clayton Moore, who was still dressed as the Lone Ranger and was sitting quietly in the back seat, stepped out of the vehicle in full heroic style. He looked at the man, who was stunned and incredulous, and he declared, "They'll believe me, citizen." The line, which was delivered with the gravitas that Moore is known for, immediately changed the course of the encounter. It was the kind of poetic justice that could only happen in real life to someone who had fully become the character he played. This story became a beloved holiday tradition on Letterman's show, and a testament to the lasting impact of Moore's presence both on and off screen. Though Jay Thomas missed just 1 year of retelling the tale, it became a hallmark of his own legacy as well as a nod to Moore's enduring mystique. Clayton Moore made a significant and somewhat surprising decision in his life in 1964, when he was at the pinnacle of his fame but was looking for a life that was less chaotic and more grounded, away from the constant glare of Hollywood. He moved with his wife, Clarita, and their young daughter to the suburban community of Golden Valley, Minnesota, which is located just west of downtown Minneapolis. This relocation was motivated primarily by a desire to be closer to Clarita's extended family, who had long been rooted in the Minneapolis area. For Moore, who had spent much of his adult life in California immersed in the film and television industry, the move represented not only a geographical shift, but also a philosophical one, an intentional step away from the demands of celebrity toward a more domestic and entrepreneurial life. In the middle of the 1960s, Golden Valley was a tranquil, family-oriented suburb that was well known for its spacious homes, good schools, and proximity to the growing economic and cultural landscape of the Twin Cities. It was the ideal location for the Moore family to settle down because it offered both tranquility and access to opportunities in the city. Embracing his new environment with characteristic determination and adaptability, Clayton Moore did not simply retire into obscurity. Instead, he reinvented himself, channeling his natural charisma, discipline, and business sense into a new professional venture. After completing the necessary coursework and passing the state's licensing exam, Moore obtained his Minnesota real estate license. Demonstrating the same dedication that had made him a successful actor and the embodiment of the Lone Ranger, he launched a real estate firm that he fittingly named Ranger Really. The name was not just a nod to his famous television role, but also a reflection of the trustworthiness, integrity, and sense of duty that had become synonymous with Moore both on and off-screen. With the help of Ranger Realty, Moore started investing in and facilitating the development of residential and commercial properties, which contributed to the rapid suburban expansion that was taking place in the Twin Cities during the 1960s and 1970s. One of the most notable accomplishments that Moore accomplished during this new phase of his life was his involvement in the development of land that was located just north of what would eventually become Interstate 394, particularly in the vicinity of the Louisiana Avenue exit. Moore was instrumental in shaping this part of the community, helping to attract investors and working with planners, builders, and city officials to ensure responsible development. At the time, this area was undergoing transformation from rural land and open fields into a thriving corridor of homes, businesses, and infrastructure. Moore played a role in shaping this part of the community. Clayton Moore, the well-liked actor who is best known for his iconic portrayal of the Lone Ranger, kept a dignified silence when it came to publicly discussing his longtime co-star Jay for a number of years. His work there left an indelible mark on the local landscape, and his reputation as a straightforward and honorable businessman earned him respect among his peers in the modern entertainment industry. While both men were deeply respected for their on-screen chemistry and for bringing to life one of the most enduring partnerships in the history of American television, very little was ever known about the true nature of their off-screen relationship. Silverheels, who famously played Tanto, the steadfast and noble Native American companion in the classic television series, was one of the actors who played Tanto. Moore, a private and honorable man by nature, chose not to delve into personal matters in interviews or public appearances, preferring instead to let the work they created together speak for itself. Yet, as time went on and both men's careers transitioned into the realm of legacy, fans and historians alike became increasingly curious about what truly lay beneath the stoic professionalism that defined their collaboration. In a rare and heartfelt interview that took place after the original show had concluded, Moore finally broke his long, held silence and opened up about his thoughts and feelings regarding Silverheels. The result was a tribute that was not only heartfelt, sincere, and deeply respectful to the man who had ridden alongside him for such a significant amount of time. Moore described Silverheels not only as a consummate professional, but also as a man of extraordinary dignity and strength. He recounted how Jay, a Mohawk from the Six Nations of the Grand River in Ontario, Canada, brought a level of authenticity, pride, and cultural integrity to the role of Tanto that was nearly unheard of at the time for indigenous actors in Hollywood. Moore expressed profound admiration for how Silverheels carried the weight of both his heritage and the expectations of the industry with quiet resilience and unshakable honor. In the interview, Moore recalled specific memories from the set, moments that had long been etched in his heart. He spoke of Silverheels' sharp wit and dry humor, which often brought levity to long shooting days under the hot California sun. He shared how Jay's calm presence provided balance, and how his unwavering dedication to portraying Tanto with respect had influenced Moore himself to treat the Lone Ranger character not merely as a Western hero, but as a moral beacon. Moore acknowledged that their on-screen camaraderie mirrored a deeper mutual understanding, even though they were not always personally close off-screen. He admitted that during the height of the show's fame, both men had been so focused on the work and the immense responsibility of representing such iconic characters that there was little room for leisurely bonding. Moore acknowledged that this was the case. However, Moore also expressed his regret that the industry had frequently failed to acknowledge Silverheels' broader contributions. He expressed his dissatisfaction with the limited roles that were available to Native American actors during that era. He also expressed his belief that Jay had been unfairly typecast despite his considerable talent, intelligence, and charisma. He expressed regret that he hadn't spoken out sooner or more vocally in support of his former co-star, acknowledging the complexity of the times they lived in and the unspoken tensions that often governed professional conduct in the television industry of the 1950s. He stated more passionately that Silverheels deserved far greater recognition not only as Tanto, but as a pioneer for Native American representation in Hollywood. He also stated that he was a pioneer for Native American representation in Hollywood. As Moore reflected on Jay Silverheels' later life, his struggles with his health, and his activism for Native actors, he did so with a reverence that was clearly rooted in years of introspection. He recalled attending events where Silverheels was honored, and how seeing his old friend receive accolades that were long overdue stirred emotions that he had kept private for a long time. Moore eventually spoke, his voice brimming with emotion, and said Jay was a pioneer. He played Tanto with such integrity that it elevated the character beyond the realm of stereotype. In doing so, he provided the Lone Ranger with a trustworthy individual who was on par with him. Additionally, in my experience, he was the same way to me. Although I was the one who wore the mask, Jay was the real one behind the scenes. Not only was Clayton Moore's choice to finally talk about Jay Silverheels a heartfelt tribute to a man who had been by his side in one of the most renowned pairings in the history of television, but it was also a long overdue acknowledgement of the quiet strength and enduring impact of his co-star. When Moore finally broke his silence, he provided fans with a unique opportunity to get insight into the relationship between two men who had, together, become symbols of justice, devotion, and enduring friendship for generations of watching audiences. The famous actor Clayton Moore, who was most remembered for his iconic depiction of the Lone Ranger, passed away on December 28, 1999. He was 85 years old at the time of his death. A hospital in West Hills, California, which is a suburban community in the western San Fernando Valley district of Los Angeles, was the location where he passed away a few days ago. Moore had resided in Calabasas, a nearby wealthy enclave tucked in the hills west of Los Angeles, for many years in a tranquil semi-retirement state. His death was the result of a heart attack that he had suffered earlier that day at his house in Calabasas. Complications resulting from the cardiac incident ultimately proved fatal for the actor, despite the efforts of rescue personnel and medical professionals to save his life. His death signaled the end of an era for generations of admirers who had grown up seeing him ride across television screens wearing his white hat and black mask, fighting for justice as the masked man of the Old West. His passing marked the end of an era. At the time of his passing, Moore was survived by Clarita Moore née Patron, who was his fourth wife throughout his life. A woman who had been by his side throughout the later stages of his life is the subject of this sentence. Due to the fact that they were married, he felt a feeling of stability and camaraderie, which was especially beneficial during his retirement years. It was well known that Clarita had a profound devotion to Moore. She had accompanied him to public engagements and charity events, where people continued to welcome him with respect and admiration long after the Lone Ranger series had come to an end. In light of the fact that Moore's previous marriages had not been successful, the beginning of their partnership in 1986 served as a source of solace and a foundation for her. Moore was survived by his adoption daughter, Dawn Angela Moore, in addition to his wife. Moore was also survived by his wife. Dawn had been a part of Clayton's life ever since she was a little child, and she did not hesitate to express her affection for the one whom she referred to as her father. She has subsequently taken an active role in maintaining her father's legacy, frequently appearing at tributes and memorial events through interviews, articles, and public lobbying. She is someone who gained direct experience of both the public figure and the private man who was hiding behind the mask. Dawn has made it her mission to ensure that the image of her father as a brave and noble character will continue to serve as a source of motivation for future generations. She has described him not only as a cinematic legend, but also as a guy who was compassionate, disciplined, and respectable, and who lived by the same moral code that he so effectively depicted on screen. He was placed to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, which is a famous and prestigious cemetery recognized for being the final resting place of many prominent figures from the golden age of Hollywood. Clayton Moore was laid to rest there after his death. It is a quiet pilgrimage spot for long-standing fans who wish to pay their respects to the man who became a symbol of honesty, justice, and integrity. His resting site is located amid the graves of other renowned entertainers, and it has become a place where individuals can pay their respects. Moore's legacy as the Lone Ranger continues to live on in the hearts of millions of people to this day, and the grounds of Forest Lawn, with its peaceful landscaping and grand architecture, serve as an appropriate place for him to rest. Flowers, tiny tributes, and even miniature reproductions of the famed black mask that became a symbol of his enduring screen presence are frequently placed on his grave. His cemetery is also frequently decorated with small tributes,